Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing A Good House for Children, written by Kate Collins. I was able to get a free eARC copy of this book for an honest review before it's published, and I'm glad I did because I enjoyed this book very much. It's a gothic horror. It uses characters and uses setting to drive that chilling factor in the book, to drive that suspense and tension. And it does it so well. The characters in this book are just amazing, every character. Even the children, and it's so hard to write children characters in books. I think a lot of authors can't do it very well, but Kate Collins has done a great job. It's a very, very good book, a great gothic horror. I do recommend it. For most of this book, so for about 99% of the book, we exist in two storylines. Both storylines are in the same house, in the same setting, but in totally different decades. So the first storyline is in the 1970s. And in the 1970s, we follow Lydia. Lydia is a nanny to 4 children. So the family moves out there because the father died just recently, and just before this book, before that storyline in the book. So the mother decides to move the children, the family, out to a house that's in kind of the middle of nowhere, on a cliff near the ocean, in country setting with a small village down the hill, so very, very isolated, this house. Lydia moves with them to look after the children, to help out. Through Lydia's eyes, we see just how the house affects her, but also how the house affects other people as well, especially the children. The house seems to change everybody. It seems to change how people act, how they feel, what they see sometimes, what they hear as well. The house is a character in this story, and I'll describe that more in the video. The second storyline is set in around 2017-2018, and we follow a young family. So we have Orla and her husband, Nick, and their 2 children. Sam, who's around 4 or so in this book, and then the youngest daughter, who's, I think, almost walking stage when we start this book. They move out to the house because they want kind of a new start for the children. Sam has issues with his speech. He's not talking. And they think it's just something psychological, something blocking him from talking. So they think by moving the family out to this setting, out to this house in the middle of nowhere, he's got room and freedom to run around and play. They think it might break that block and he'll start talking. So that's the main reason they move into this house. And through Orla's eyes, we start to see the way the house changes her. So it's very introspective with Orla. We get changes within her, but also within her family as well. Now we talk about the character of the house. So the house in this book is a character. I say that because the house is directly impacting other characters in the book, and how they think, how they feel, what they do. They're interacting with the house, and they're changing their behaviour because of the house, because of this character. And the house character changes behaviour as well. So with both families, at the very start, the house is very welcoming. Welcomes the families in. They think the house is wonderful. It's so large. It's a big house. It's massive. Everything about the house is wonderful. Then over time, the house changes. It seems to switch to a more aggressive personality, and it starts to manipulate things amongst the people, starts to change things with the people, show them, flashes of things, and we don't know if those flashes are in the past or the present. For me, it feels like they're past and present, and that made it more chilling. It felt to me like when these two storylines are happening, that each storyline is witnessing little glimpses of the other storyline, and maybe other storylines as well in more distant past or more distant future. That's what it felt like with this house. It felt like the house was an entity that was controlling time, but also controlling the way people think and act. And that's a big thing that I liked in this storyline. The way the storylines were bleeding into each other, little snippets. There's little glimpses of things that go on, and it just felt so chilling that someone in one storyline was seeing something, but somebody else who was standing next to them wasn't seeing that at all. That just adds to the tension, adds to the chill factor in this story. And it happened more and more frequently as the story goes on. And it was just well constructed in that sense. So at the start of the book, it's quite light, it's quite colourful. The characters are enjoying themselves, and as the story goes on, it gets a little bit darker. There's more shadows happening in the story, and the characters start to change. That's because the house is changing as the story goes on as well in both storylines. So you can see then how the house as a character is affecting other characters in the book. And then that bleeding element with different storylines bleeding into each other in little snippets, little snapshots, when it happens more frequently, that just is just another great element in this book. And it feels so well controlled in the story. It feels like the timing of it and what's chosen to bleed into different timelines as those little snippets just adds so much to the story. So it's great choices by the author. This book really surprised me. And it happens sometimes. Sometimes you get to a book, all you know is the blurb. And with this book, that's all I could know was the blurb. But I'm so glad I read it because it was just a wonderful book. That gothic feel really comes through. It comes through all the characters, how they act, how they behave. The gothic feel comes through with the house as well, how the house behaves towards people. It felt just so chilling, and it felt just very well constructed. Also, the characters in this story. The author's got a great grasp of how to write characters of all ages, male and female. Not many authors are able to write every character to be so believable. It's very hard to do, I think, but in this book, every character feels organic. What they say and do feels organic, it feels so natural, and it's such a good skill to have as a writer, and that makes me wonder what's in the future for Kate Collins. What books are going to be released by this author in the future? Orla, the main character in the 2017-2018 storyline. She's such a great character, very introspective, and her introspection is just spot on. She's so observant, and she's so deep in what she sees and what she thinks. And also how her son changes from being, through her eyes, her son changes from being this happy, kind of vibrant child and changing over time into being more sullen. Even sometimes seems like afraid of her as she changes as well when the house starts to change her behaviour. It's very interesting to see through her eyes. She's very self-aware of things as well, self-aware of how the house is changing her in this story, and that makes a little bit more chilling as well when you've got a character that's aware of something going on but can't stop it. And her character is very special, I think, in this book. There's some decisions with this character, some changes that are very powerful, very impactful. Lydia, who's in the 1970s timeline, she's another great character, very strong, but she's not as introspective. She's more about action, more about movement. And I think that goes with her being a nanny. She's being a nanny looking after 4 kids. And some of those kids are very rambunctious. They're running around a lot, shouting a lot. So she's got her hands full. And I think that's where she hasn't got time to be so introspective. But with Lydia, we see not only what Lydia feels and sees and hears in the house, but through Lydia's eyes, we get to see what the children hear and see, because through their dialogue, they mention it. And she's trying to dive into that with the children, trying to find out more. But they play coy a lot. They won't admit to things, even though she suspects and even though she thinks the children are seeing and hearing things. They won't tell her. They won't admit to it. But it's interesting that through Lydia's eyes, we get that. So we get to witness more about what the house is doing with the children through Lydia's eyes. And it's very powerful to have a character do that and make it so believable, make it feel so real. Sam is the young child of Orla and Nick, and I found him an interesting character. He's a character that doesn't speak, and that's down to a psychological block more than anything physical. And I just found the way the author had the child communicate through touch, through facial expressions, through other means than sound was very interesting, especially with a child that's so young in the book, I think 4 or 5. The author showed great control, great creativity with this character in how to make Sam communicate with his parents and other people, and I found that fascinating. It just shows the author planned this out a bit, I think, in the writing, took this character and really thought about the most effective way to have this character be impactful in the story without using words or any sounds at all, really. So I do like Sam as a character. He's very powerful in this book. A Good House for Children by Kate Collins was a great read, a great gothic horror. It's very slow burn, so if you don't like slow burn horror, this may not be for you. But if you do like slow burn horror where characters and setting and a lot of introspection drive that tension and suspense and that feeling, those chills, then you'll love this book. I rate this book a 4 out of 5. I found it a chilling read. I found the gothic elements so well done. It feels very controlled, this book. It feels like the author planned it out. You can kind of tell that in the way the characters are developed, their dialogue, their whole persona. Every character in the book feels so real. I think it takes great planning to do that. Thank you to the publishers Serpent's Tail for making this book available to me to read in advance for an honest review. All comments in this video are my own. On my channel, I do review quite a few horrors. If you're into horrors, check out my channel and subscribe. There's also a horror playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.